Hi everyone, welcome to my page where I Adel, life and relationship coach. Today we're gonna talk about another serious topic. It's domestic violence, and my guest is today Sahar. Hi Sahar, how are you?
Hi, hi Vera. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you so much. I'm always at the beginning so nervous, I don't know what to say because this is making me like we are going to talk serious and very.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
very
important.
excited so you accept my invitation, okay? Because I have a serious already talk series of the talks, but it's in Slovak language. So I'm happy that today we're gonna speak in English for the
Yeah,
English speaking ladies.
yeah.
So let's start with your story. Uh,
Okay.
your husband, your ex-husband, to be correct, okay? Your ex-husband, where he comes from, and how was the beginning of the relationship? And did you see any signs when you think after, like later on, that okay, this is I should watch out. This was the thing. Maybe tell us.
So sorry. My husband or my ex-husband was he's Egyptian. He was born and raised in the UAE. He had a very Gulf mentality almost, where there was the double standards for men and women. I didn't see that in the beginning. When I first got to know him, it was just he was very adventurous. He did, snowboarding. He liked to eat sushi. He liked to, go out on like safaris and all of that. And so I thought, oh, great, this is somebody who's really open-minded and likes to have fun. And this would be somebody who's a perfect match for me. And plus, like I knew their family already through one of my best friends. So I was like, okay, great.
Let's let's say that you are coming from the mixed like
Yeah,
parents.
yeah.
Okay, that's why we are talking that he was like a perfect match, like a modern Egyptian guy. Because
Yeah.
really, Egyptians they do not eat sushi. I have to say that not really common.
No, yeah, there's a lot of, and especially back in the day when I was first getting to know him. Sorry, I had to let my cat out. She it's yeah, there wasn't a lot of guys who liked sushi. There wasn't a lot of sushi wasn't very popular around 11 years ago as it is today. So there wasn't a lot of people who liked it. So yeah, my dad is Egyptian, my mom is Canadian. So I grew up knowing both sides of the culture, and thinking that I would be able to recognize if there was any problems before I ever got into a marriage or into a relationship or anything. But no, no, I didn't. I think that I gave him a lot of excuses, because I wanted things to work. You think that you are smart enough to be able to catch these things beforehand. But again, love and that feeling of wanting things and wanting it to work because you don't think that you'll find somebody like this, who has similar interests, who is adventurous, who does scuba diving. Um, I didn't think that I would be able to find somebody like that. And I vastly undersold myself. It was really dumb of me to do that, but you live and you learn. But yeah, it was there were signs. There were signs, and I ignored them. I gave it, you know, the excuse of stress, because he was doing his master's degree, that, we were far away. We were engaged for a year, but I was here in Egypt and he was in the UAE doing his master's degree and working. So I would always chalk up the problems to stress, to, you know, um, pre-wedding jitters, whatever. Um, he wasn't physically abusive a lot. It was more emotionally abusive. It was more verbally abusive. Um, it was more than anything. It was negligence, and that can really be damaging, just as much as physical abuse, just as much as verbal abuse. So when somebody's ignoring you, it hurts. It really does.
Okay, I would like to ask you at the beginning, or before you get married. Okay, I don't know how it was, but did your parents see something wrong with the guy, or they were like very happy with him that he's a good match for you?
There were some problems that my parents pointed out. I always thought that it was that they were being overly dramatic, especially my mom. Um, I thought that it was a lack of communication, that because English wasn't his first language, maybe he didn't know how to express himself well enough. He spoke English well enough, but
Mm-hmm.
just there are certain things that maybe you think that you're going to say in Arabic, it's going to translate over in English, and it just doesn't. So I thought
Mm-hmm.
that this was the issue, and I would edit their emails going back and forth. Um, but yeah, no, I
And
should have listened to them.
but when we are in love, usually we don't listen. So
For sure, for sure. You have these goggles on and you keep on giving excuse after excuse after excuse. Saying, oh, he's stressed, oh, he's upset about something else. And you give them a million reasons. And really after some time you shouldn't be giving them excuses anymore.
okay, so let's talk about then you got married and when the things changed.
Um, there was a lot that I got married in the days of the revolution.
Okay.
So my my mom arrived on the Friday of Rage. So as we say in Arabic, Gumat al Ghadab. And that she was the last. It was the last airplane to arrive before they shut down everything. So my wedding was canceled. Everything was canceled. Um, and so I was really stressed. Um,
Was
he
the
decided
biggest
that.
sign ever, imagine if you
Yeah,
think about it
exactly.
now.
That's what my mom said. She's like, the entire world didn't want you to, like, the entire country didn't want you to get married, and you still insisted on getting married. So, yeah, everything got canceled. We decided to do something small. But the thing that really kind of tipped me off at that point was, as soon as we were done the wedding ceremony or whatever that we did at his house, with no friends, nobody. It was just immediate family. Um, he wanted to leave. And my mom and my grandma and my younger sister, who was 8, 7 at the time, something like that,
Okay.
he wanted to just leave them there. And I was like, well, my mom and my sister and my grandma came just for you. Like, they came just for us to come to this wedding. We can't just leave them here. Oh, they're going to be safe. They're going to be fine. And I started to realize at that point the extent of his selfishness, that he would always put himself first. I didn't really understand until we actually left. Um, and like, I insisted on us leaving with my mom and my sister and my grandmother the same day. But once we got there, um, it became abundantly clear that his wants and his needs would be priority always. It didn't matter what I wanted. It didn't matter what I said. Whether I was, and the wedding night is supposed to be something special for a couple. It's something very sacred. Um, and yeah, it ended up being literally, ended up being rape. Um, so yeah, that was something that I had to deal with. I ended up sleeping on the couch that night. And I realized that night, I even wrote it on my phone. Like, I realize now that this man will never put me before his own wants and needs. I've made a huge mistake. So it was pretty traumatizing, but I've, you know, gone to therapy and gone through a lot of talking about it. And, it's hard to admit because there is a huge stigma around sexual abuse, especially in marriage. Um, People think that if you're married, then he has the
There's
right
no
to.
rape.
There is no
Yeah.
right, and like, that's not true at all. Um, so yeah. It just continued to get worse, between, fighting and arguing and him ignoring me and saying what I could wear and what I couldn't wear, what shoes I could wear, what shoes I couldn't wear, um, who I was allowed to associate with, isolating me even more and more, to the point where it was like I wasn't allowed to have anybody over or get to know anybody unless he knew them first.
Okay.
So yeah, I did start to realize very quickly after we were married that this was a mistake.
Okay, and then did you search for any help? Did you talk to your mom, for example, or to his parents? What did you do?
At first, no. At first, I didn't because I was ashamed. I thought that maybe there was something wrong with me because he said that, oh, this is how it has to be, and I had no experience in that realm. I had no sexual experience, to be able to say yes, this is normal. No, this is not normal. It was only after talking to friends and family later on that I realized that no, this was not okay. This was not normal. But at first, we have this culture in Egypt, and the way that I was raised is that you don't air your dirty laundry. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens between husband and wife stays between a husband and wife, and you try to fix things and you try to work things out. And my mom always said, don't complain to me about your husband because, and this was when I was a teenager. This was way before marriage was even on the radar. She said, because you and him may, make up and you're going to be okay and everything is going to go, better. But I am never going to be able to forgive him because he hurt my child. And so, in
Yes.
the hope that, we could fix things and so in the hopes that things would be better in the long run, I didn't say anything for a very long time. Once everything really broke down, once we were at the point of divorce, that's when I finally came forward and told my dad about everything. My dad was devastated. He was so upset that I didn't say anything before. Um, but that was after I don't know how long of marriage and a child in between us. Um, it was much too late at that point for anything to be fixed. I didn't want you know I didn't want it to break down because I was a child of divorce. I grew up in a home of divorce. And so I did everything, absolutely everything in my power to try and keep this marriage together.
Like what did you do?
Changing,
Tell us the
yeah,
example.
changing the way that I dress, changing my makeup, changing myself, my personality, trying my best to appease him if he didn't like me to do something or go somewhere or say, certain things. um, just adjusting little things in my personality, and it was over a period of time that I didn't realize how much I had changed until one day I didn't recognize myself. I wasn't me anymore. I was this version of me that was made to make him happy. um I yeah, there was a lot. you know I had an obsession with shoes, high heels especially. I loved high heels, and he wasn't that much taller than me. And so he really didn't like when I wore high heels because it made him feel shorter. And so I stopped wearing high heels, which were a very important part of, I feel like, my
Your
personality.
personality.
Yeah, as a woman, you want to feel beautiful. You want to feel, yeah, high heels they were just an important part of my personality at the time. Ridiculous now to say, but it was something so small, that ended up being a really big thing.
Like
My
we are
makeup.
saying always that the small things are making the life, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And when you start to really change all of those small things, you end up with someone that you don't know. You look in the mirror and you don't know who that is anymore. You've
Okay.
really lost yourself.
So how long have you been married in general?
Oh, we were we were married for quite a while, but not living under the same roof. And even living under the same roof, it wasn't consecutive. So in total, it was 5 months in the beginning before I got pregnant, and then had to make a choice as to whether or not I was, going to go through with the pregnancy, because of all of the problems that we were having. So I went back to Canada, stayed there for a while. Sorry. Um, and he was in the UAE. And I think that was when our marriage had a really big hit. Not being together. It was lost after that. It was a lost cause after that. There was so much that he had changed, that I didn't know who he was anymore. It was like I came back to a stranger.
Okay.
The
What he
way
was
that he acted, going out with people that I don't know. Where are you going? Oh, I'm going out with my friends. Which friends? I know all your friends. No, these are new friends that you don't know. He had certain habits, little things like always wearing an undershirt under his shirts. And then, like, since he was a little kid, like, you could ask anybody in his family, um, is that something that he would do? And they're like, for sure. He always, no matter how hot it was, no matter what, he was always wearing an undershirt under his shirts. And he stopped doing that. He was suddenly getting like waxed. Like, he would go to like a salon to get waxes. He was wearing necklaces, which he had always said were for gays. So yeah, there was a lot that went on when I wasn't there, when I was pregnant, and going through the pregnancy in Canada, that I think that I missed a lot, and I don't know what happened in that time frame, because I came back to a stranger. Like, I had no idea who he was anymore.
okay.
Like, it was bad enough that, like, we already had problems when I knew
Yes.
who he was, and now I have to start all over again, discovering who
Did
this
you
person is.
did you ask him what's going on?
I did, and he said nothing. No, nothing. It's fine. It's normal. I just, the waxing is just, it feels cleaner. Like, and the undershirt, I just don't feel like it. The necklace is, oh, well, it's leather. It's, there's just, there was things that I was just like, I don't get it. This isn't you. Like, this is
Okay.
not the person that I've known for the last few years. Anyways, we, under the same roof, we lived 6 months and 3 weeks. So 5 months in the beginning, and then a month when he came to Canada for the birth of our son. And then another 3 weeks when I finally came back to the UAE before everything just hit the fan. And I asked him, you're either in this marriage or you're out. And without missing a beat, without, even taking a second to think, he was like, I'm out. I was like, okay,
Wow.
great. Well, you don't tell me that. You go ahead and phone my dad and you tell him that, because I'm not doing this anymore.
Did he?
Yeah, because I mean, like, I had tried. I had done everything that I can. I, would put Adam to bed, to bed early, our son to bed early. I would, dress up to the nines, my makeup done, my hair done, high heels, make him dinner, everything, thinking that, this was going to fix things. But when you're gone for so long, and then that person, you know, doesn't even come near you for 2 weeks, um, there's something wrong. If you're gone for months and your husband won't come near you for 2 weeks, I talked to my mom and she just started crying. She said, and excuse me if this is a little vulgar, but I'm assuming that our audience is going to be all adults. But she said, if he's not getting it from you, then he's getting it somewhere else. And
I think I think I
that's
understand where are you pointing this conversation. I
exactly.
think I got it. I still hope it's wrong, but I mean I'm wrong, but I think I understand
Yeah,
because it's like wow that you went open about this.
yeah. There's, he's a man. Men have needs. And
Mm,
if you're walking the straight and narrow and you're not doing anything wrong, and you're faithful to your wife, I highly doubt that after months of her being away, that you're just not going to come near her for 2 weeks. It just doesn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense. I bought new lingerie. I did everything that I could to think that, maybe that closeness, that intimacy was what was missing. And um, it was a really stupid thing for me to think that that was going to fix anything. It was already broken.
Oh, for sure, any relationship needs intimacy. Without this doesn't exist. The
Yeah,
relationship it will not work.
yeah,
If it's not the agreement between both of them that they don't need, okay?
exactly.
But so he was like having a relationship outside. Did you find out later on, or?
I had my suspicions. I found, my hair was very short at the time. I found long, blonde curly hair on my couch when I came back. Um,
Mm,
and when I asked him about it, he said, "Oh, it's the maid. Oh, it's whoever." And I was just
mm,
like, "I'm not buying it." Like, and by the time everything was said and done, I mean, we would, accidentally touch each other's hand, and then be, you get shocked and go, "Oh, sorry," as if you accidentally bump into a stranger.
mm-hmm.
And I was just like, it really clicked to me then, like, oh my God, it's really that bad, is that I can't even accidentally bump his hand without us apologizing to each other. Like, what is this? So
Do
yeah,
you
it
think?
was, it was a mess.
Do you think even this guy he loved you one day?
I would hope so, but my logic and my brain says no. Um, I think that we had agreed to not have any children for the first 2 years of our marriage. I was pregnant 5 months into our marriage.
Mm,
And this was because he kept on forgetting to buy, any,
protection.
condoms or protection. Yes. So after that, it was, my mom, when things started to kind of fall apart, said, you should, you know, be careful with, how you're treating her, because she can have you, because I had sponsored him to come to Canada. Um, and she was like, you should be careful with how you're treating her, because she can have you kicked out of the country.
Okay.
And he started laughing. He laughed at her and said, no, she can't. I have a Canadian son. They won't kick me out. For
Mm,
humanitarian reasons. They won't kick me out. And so it was almost like he knew. He had already done the homework. He knew what it would take to make sure and to guarantee his way into Canada. Um, So, I mean,
so
it's not like he needed me though. That's the thing, is like, I didn't expect that, because he didn't need me to get into Canada, because he had the education, he had all the points, but it was, I guess, the easier route. I don't know.
um, this was my question. Do you think that he will get married with you because of this to enter Canada?
At On some level, I have to think so, because
Mm,
it was from day one. From day one, there was no mercy, there was no kindness. We had good times. Like, I'm not going to deny that I'm not going to say my entire marriage was just suffering all the time. No, we had good times. There were times when we went out for ice cream and in the middle of the night, and, he would surprise me with candies on my bed when I came out of the shower, and there was a whole bunch of candy. There are times where we went out for movies in the middle of the night, unexpected movie, outings. So it wasn't all bad. But when it came to the things that were important, the communication, the connection, um, it really wasn't there.
and did you like a search in his family background? Maybe he was having some problems when he was child, or from where this all coming, you know?
You know what? His older brother had warned me, actually, before we got married, while we were still engaged. And he said, "Be aware that he is very selfish."
Hmm.
And I thought, that's a very strange thing for you to say to your brother's fiance. Like, why would you say that? And I told my husband, who was my fiance at the time, about what happened, and he said, "Oh, he's always been jealous of me because I always
Okay.
did better at school than him. I've always had a better life than him." And so I believed him, and I kind of brushed it off as sibling rivalry. And then after everything fell apart, I was talking to his sister, and his sister was like, "Yep, he's been this way his whole life. He's been this way his whole life. He's always been selfish. He's always been very self-centered." I was like, "Why did nobody tell me? Why did
Okay.
nobody warn me?"
So you didn't talk to his family during the marriage that you have some kind of problems.
No, not like I said, I didn't. I It was only when there was big fights
Mhm.
that they would be involved. When there was like if he got physical with me. There was one time we were getting into a big fight because of a room that I had gone into that he had locked. He had his own room in the house that I was not allowed to go into. I got into that room, and he came in after me, and I threw something at him because he was swearing at me, and he ended up tackling me to the ground and slapping me across the face. And so I spit in his face, and I just asked for a divorce. And uh, that was one of the times where his parents got involved.
And
But
he
again,
helped.
it was, "Oh, Manish, it's okay." It was just a moment of anger. It wasn't anything serious. He didn't mean it. And if he ever does anything like that again, we'll do the such and such and such to him, and you don't have to worry about anything. And yeah, no, that never happened.
Okay. And tell
There
me
was
about
always
your
excuses.
son. Did he witness any of these things?
No, we separated on his first birthday, actually. On his first birthday, I was in Egypt. We had already separated. I was in Egypt. He was still he had been in the UAE, gotten his landing visa to Canada. That was in February. Mid-March was my son's birthday, and he phoned me on our son's birthday. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this back and forth. One day you're like, okay, let's work on things. And then the next day you're like, I can't even stand you. I can't breathe around you. Like, it was a yo-yo. And I think that
Mm,
he really did that in order to kind of keep me hanging so that I
mm,
wouldn't cancel his sponsorship.
mm,
Um, and then finally on that day, he was like, yeah, no, I'm done. So he had finally gotten to Canada, put his feet on the ground there for a month before he finally decided that we were done. And so it was on my son's first birthday, and I took off my wedding ring at that point and never looked back. I was done with
mhm.
him.
Okay. So you were living in Egypt just a short time, right?
Yeah, so once I had gone back to Dubai, and the 3 weeks had passed that, everything was kind of falling apart. I asked him, are you in this marriage or you're out? And he said, no, I'm out. And I was like, that's fine. Get me and my son a ticket back to Canada. And he was like, well, I can't afford a ticket back to Canada right now. But I'll send you to get guys to Egypt for now until, we sort everything out.
Mhm.
In that period of time, he was telling my mom and my dad, on separate, phone calls or whatever, and separate conversations, don't let Sahar cancel anything, because if there's a chance for us to fix our marriage, it'll be in Canada. We'll go to marriage therapy, we'll go to, marriage counseling, we'll try and fix things. While I was in Egypt and he was in Dubai. Um,
Mm,
that obviously never happened. He refused multiple times to go to marriage counseling. And
mhm.
that should be a big sign. If somebody is not willing to go to marriage counseling, don't, like, it's not going to be. There's
Exactly. You
no
cannot
way.
fix the relationship alone. There should
He's
be the
not
other side.
interested. He's not
Mm,
interested in fixing things. So if he's not interested in fixing things, then there's nothing that you can do.
mm. Exactly.
So I was in Egypt at that time for about 6 months before he had gone to Canada. A couple months later. And then instead of bringing us to Vancouver, where he lives, he sent us tickets to Edmonton, where my mom lives. So he was just very clear that, he was not interested in making this work. He was not interested in trying to have us all together, um, to try
I
and
think he
make
was
this
having his
relationship.
own plan, as you said, his own selfish plan to
I
just
think
get the
so.
visa, you know.
It
So
just it
now,
it's hard for me to accept that, but it's the only thing that makes sense, really.
mm-hmm. And now are you in touch still because you have a son together,
Yeah.
or are you communicating?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do have to stay in touch with him because we do have a child together. That's
Mm-hmm.
definitely one thing that I would suggest to anybody. If you're having problems with somebody, don't bring children into it. You are going to be tied to that person for the rest of your life. Um, so yeah, we had to go through court in order to be able to bring Adam here to Egypt. Um, and yeah, so I do still have to keep in contact with him, just the bare minimum. I try not to engage in any fighting or going into any deeper conversations because it's really pointless. He knows how to press my buttons, and he had admitted that to my mom, and my mom was like, "Why do you do that? Why do you annoy her? Like, why do you push her buttons like that?" And he started laughing. He's like, it's fun. I do it on purpose because I like to see a reaction out of her.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, you have to reach the point that you will be cool, that you will not
yeah,
express
I
any
try
emotions.
to. It's hard. I mean, my son is almost 10 years old now, and it's still really hard. It's not as bad as it was in the beginning. I couldn't even speak to him in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
without, yelling and screaming and crying because I was devastated. That's not what I wanted for my life. It's not what I wanted for my child. Um, and that was all kind of thrown out the window. But now, like I can see him for a few minutes, while he's picking up Adam, dropping him off, whatnot, and just be civil. And you're right. You have to be cold to a point and just kind of try to ignore him because they do purposely try to get under your skin to get a reaction out of you. And it's ridiculous.
Tell me, how is his relation with the son? Is it good or?
Yeah, he has a good relationship with his son. He is very much Disneyland daddy, which means he's um, only here for a week or so, a couple times a year. And while he's here, he's bought him PlayStation and Nintendo Switch, whatever, and taking him on these vacations and whatever, and doesn't discipline him.
Mm,
And so he doesn't get to see or really parent, so he doesn't really do any of the hard work of parenting. He gets to have all the fun side of parenting. So he does have a fairly good relationship with his son. Adam, though, is very protective of me. And so he sometimes has issues with his dad and things that have happened. And he's like, well, my dad's not very nice for doing that to you, and I don't like that. And I'm like, you know what, sweetie, it's not, I appreciate that, but it's really not any of your concern. I don't want you to get involved in that. That is between me and your dad, not between you and your dad. You and your dad's relationship is separate. Your dad loves you, I love you, and that's all you have to concern yourself with.
it's amazing. That's amazing that you are doing this. You don't put the
Well,
child
it's
between
hard.
because this is the worst.
It is. Well, and because I experienced that firsthand, and I know that my mom didn't mean to, but she, as a single parent, after my parents' divorce, was constantly bad mouthing my dad in front of us, and it made me feel torn. So it made me feel like I had to choose a side in this battle. And as a child, you don't understand that you don't have to choose a side, that you can love both of them.
Yes.
And that's okay. As a kid, you think, no, you can only be friends with one or the other. You can't be friends with both if they don't like each other. And so you can't love both. And so it was hard. It was really hard, and I didn't want my own child to go through that. So you live and you learn, and you
Mm-hmm.
try to give your child a better experience than you had.
Of course. I want to ask you if, like, you are thinking the backward. Can you tell the ladies who are watching us, and maybe they are in the similar situations, what was the like the main signs the marriage is not okay? Now, like you should stop it. You know, like you were waiting, but there were sure like main signs that it's not okay, and you shouldn't continue.
Yeah. Again, like I said, the issues with intimacy, that it was always, what he wanted. It was never what I wanted. Um, I was, you, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to trying to find the words here. Um, when you start to delete parts of your personality, when you start to change crucial parts of your personality for that person, when he starts being a yo-yo, some days it's up and some days it's down, but it's not like just regular ups and downs. It's severe ups and downs to the point where you're crying, in the bed beside him and he's on his phone, just ignoring you. So um, there are definite signs where things are becoming more and more toxic. Um, when huge major personality changes, things that his family even would be shocked to hear. Um, what else? Yeah,
I
just
think it's
very
okay.
very controlling. If somebody is very controlling of your life, doesn't let you have a life outside of what they control. So you're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to have any friends unless they approve them. Any friends that they do not approve, you are to delete them off your Facebook. You are to never speak to them again, male or female. Because I thought that it was going to be just my male friends that were not allowed to be on my Facebook anymore. But once we got married, he even started picking and choosing through my female friends of who he thought I was allowed to talk to and who I wasn't allowed to talk to. Um, so yeah,
But what I think,
those are major red flags that you need to just, this is not
yeah,
a good idea.
this I totally agree with you. But what I would like to say, the community, like let's say in Egypt, when you are facing this kind of thing in the marriage, they are like underestimating the people around. You know, like, oh come
Yeah,
on, it's just like he has bad mood, he is overstressed because of his work, and it's like no go for the lady to complain that she is emotionally abused.
absolutely.
It's something doesn't exist in
And
this
but that's
culture.
to a limit. That's to a limit. Like, you have to understand that, yes, I understand that there are times where you're going to be stressed. Yes, I understand that there are times where things aren't going to be good. And you know what? You go through rough patches in marriages. But when it's consistent, when it is all the time, where it's, when the bad overshadows the good, when you can think about more bad times than you can think about good times, then it's time to walk away.
Exactly, exactly. But I know that you are having like happy ending for us.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
us.
So, after we separated and divorced, I went back to Canada, and when my son was 4, in about what was it, 2018? No, 2016. Sorry. I met another Egyptian guy. He was, born and raised here in Egypt, but he was, in Canada. He was actually had been divorced twice, um, and with 3 kids. So, one from the first marriage, 2 from the second, and I was just like, I don't know about this. This isn't like, I'm like, all
Very
right.
fair, let's say.
Yeah, because the first marriage of his was to an Egyptian, the second was to a Canadian, and so now
Okay.
he's interested in the half
Happy
Canadian,
to
half
the mix.
Egyptian. Hold the stick from the middle. Maybe it'll work. And yeah, he's an amazing guy. We got married in 2018, and moved back here to Egypt, and it's been going really great ever since. I mean, of course, we have our ups and downs. Yes, we fight, um, but at the end of the day, I know that he cares about me. I know because even if we're fighting, even if we're arguing, if I get sick, he comes running. He does not, like, everything goes out the window of our argument, or being upset with each other. It's all negligent. It's nothing.
Exactly.
Now we have to focus on, you getting better, your health. It's fine. We'll deal with all that other stuff later. And when I'm really upset, and when I'm like, he understands that I have anxiety, he understands that I have trust issues, um, and is more caring and kind, and takes the time to really just understand what I'm going through and just not take it personally. And he understands that a lot of time that I'm panicking and lashing out because of anxiety. It's not because I hate him. It's not because I'm a terrible person, but because I am going through a hard time personally. And so he's there for me as a friend before he is there for me as anything else, which I think is super, super important for any kind of marriage to last. And I have a great relationship with his parents. I love his parents, and they adore me. And my mom and my dad both adore him. They were a little bit cautious in the beginning, but they both came around, and my dad has said things like, you know, hold on to this one, because you're not going to find another one like this. I'm telling you, as a man, you're not going to find somebody like this again.
That's nice.
So
That's blessed.
yeah,
I'm
he's
very,
a good.
very happy for you. Very happy for
Yeah,
you.
so
You
not
of
all
course.
not all Egyptians are bad. Not every Middle Eastern guy is bad. Not they're not all looking for your citizenship. He still doesn't, like my husband currently, he still doesn't have his citizenship. He was in Canada for 10 plus years on a PR, permanent residency, but due to his work being onshore and offshore, he wasn't able to fulfill the requirements. And I was like, well, when we were moving to Egypt, you don't want to let that expire. And he's like, you know what? It doesn't really matter. I have more important things to think about right now. My family, you, our kids. There's a lot more important things to think about right now than letting a permanent residency expire. I can get the paperwork done later. It's not a big deal. So there's always, you have to look at the person's priorities. Like, what are their priorities in life? Is it for them to make money and to be successful and all of that? And that's great. A guy's got to have ambition, but you don't want him to be a bum sitting at home and you spending on him. That's not okay either. But there has to be a happy balance between family, emotions, your relationship. They've got to be, you've got to be communicating. And I think that, like, we've always agreed that the basis of our relationship was going to be based on open and honest communication. No matter what happens, if we can be open and honest about it, we'll figure it out. And that's kind of why things have been going well, I think, hopefully.
Okay. Knock the wood, we are saying in Slovak. Knock the wood, touch the
Not on wedding.
wood. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. It was really nice that you
It was
share with
really
us
nice to
your.
talk to you. I'm so sorry, Vera, for postponing the last time.
No,
This
no,
cough.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Everything happened in the right time, so
Yes,
it's fine.
definitely.
I wish you and your family all the best,
Thank
really.
you so much. Thank you.
And it was nice to talk to you, and thank
It
you
was
that
good
you
to
are
talk to you
following my
too.
channel, everyone.
Oh,
Have a
for
nice
sure.
day.
For sure. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.